here we are in hopefully moving into a post-pandemic world. I mean, this word is probably one of the most Googled, overused words, and almost in common use as much as God and prayer. And I was feeling how, at every moment in our life journey, we're always encouraged, either by our own conscience or by events around us, to become more truthful and more honest with ourselves. I don't think that the soul can live in a state of falsehood for very long. The lies will unfold one day. The truth will come out one day. That's the nature of it. It's from history. And I feel like somehow, before the pandemic, all of us at varying levels had limited understanding about ourselves, because Emmy used this word understanding, and I think that's very key here. And a limited understanding of my identity. And as the pandemic hit and we got stripped of our limited supports that shaped our identity, I guess for many people, there was the option to conduct an inquiry into the self and go beyond some of these limited understandings of myself to really answer this question from the heart: who am I? Pre-pandemic, and people were complaining they don't have time. We don't have time to meditate. We don't have time to do this. And then during the pandemic, you got all the time in the world, and there's still people complaining. We've got too much time. We don't know what to do with ourselves. And people struggling with their own mental health in the process, because when you are suddenly in that scenario where you do have time and all you have is yourself with you, then if you're not friends with yourself, it can be quite an uncomfortable experience. So I suppose for me, the whole thing of what the pandemic helped to do is helped individuals conduct a deeper inquiry internally and into their own sense of purpose in their life and values, where before perhaps they'd placed too much importance on materialism. Now it was more relational, relationships, the value of people in your life, maybe the lost relationships, the people you haven't paid attention to suddenly become more visible in your life. And it still brings us to this place here now, where this question, well, who am I? And when I was thinking about this word fortune, I suddenly realized how, when we're in the world and we talk about fortune as I have money, I have wealth, I have a house, I have good people around me, I have a good job, I have skills, I have achievements, I have awards. But fortune in a spiritual sense, which I feel is a bedrock of courage, is the shift from the consciousness of I have to I am. And what am I then? If I have all of these things in my life, what am I? And is that sense of I am as strong as the sense of I have? Because I think all of us can exhibit a level of courage in our lives when we have lots of things. When we have money, we have the courage to donate, to start a venture. When we have connections or people who are a team under us, we have the courage to take up new tasks. So a lot of our courage is based on what we've acquired or what I have. So courage is experienced as a very limited quality. You can't call courage a skill. It is essentially a quality of spirit. And yet at the deeply spiritual level, when courage is cultivated at I am level, what does it look like? I understand who I am as a core being behind all these masks and labels. I feel who I am in myself. I feel my own goodness. My stability and my sense of self comes from that sense of feeling my softness and sweetness and love and peace inside. And knowing that I am fortunate because I am this energy. I am this treasure store inside. I don't have to go shopping for it outside. So I feel this little bit of a shift in consciousness is what's required to activate the right kind of courage, because, courage at a limited level, and you're looking at, the courage that requires us to prove ourselves. Well, you got to push yourself in life, prove yourself. And that's not courage, really. That's just kind of hanging on to things and using them to help you move forward or to make a point in life. But real courage is such a quiet sense of confidence in who I am. And, I've always found that such a soul that has accumulated a sense of fortune, a sense of spiritual fortune, I am this. They can, they're happier in their being, much, much happier in their being, much more content in their being, much more relaxed in their being. And so they can conduct their day-to-day affairs accordingly. There's no edge, there's no pushiness, there's no, but there's a quiet trust internally that seems to make things work. And so I find very much that the basis of courage and actually opening the door to spiritual courage is opening this inquiry into who am I? Is challenging the limited sense of self that I'm holding on to, that I'm quite secure with right now, and choosing to dive into somewhere that I don't quite know at a conscious level yet, but I feel is important because I've got to get to the bottom of who I am. That's the first act of courage. I think we can embark on a spiritual journey as well, and we can know a lot of good things. But ultimately, I have to turn my inner eye and face myself and get to the bottom of who I really am, and understand myself very deeply. Because only when there is a deep sense of self-understanding can there be compassion. You can handle yourself lightly because you understand yourself. When you understand anybody, then you can work with somebody. But when you don't understand someone, when you don't understand yourself, then most of the time we're applying the baton of expectations and demands and control on ourselves, which is really hard energy. It's invasive energy and it's violent energy. And that's why in our relationships we get pushback, or even from our own selves we get pushback. We experience resistance inside because the resistance is a pushback to a subtle attitude of expectation or demand or control or judgment. And I feel this is so important because especially the courage to walk past pain at a deeply personal level. Pain can sometimes be a barrier that doesn't let us see ourselves, because sometimes something's so painful that all we want to do is just push it back out again, i.e. project it out to feel some respite. Somebody else is to blame for my pain. Something else has to happen for my pain to go. And yet just for a few moments, one of the tricks in they use in science and physiotherapy and all kinds of mechanisms where if you concentrate on something beyond the pain, you won't feel the pain as much. But if you concentrate on the pain itself, it's unbearable. And so in the same way, when we're awakening a sense of spiritual identity, we're awakening a sense of self that's deeper than just the physical, that's deeper than just the emotional self, that's deeper than just the personality. It is absolutely a core Shakti, we like to call, a core subtle power that really gives life to this body, that without this life force, this body is extremely heavy. It has no life in it. And this is a living, thinking life force energy that is just so rich as an energy. And so the more I meditate and the more I find myself in experiencing this stream of this life force, then what tends to happen is it has a very subtle effect on my mindset. Where, typically speaking, when we don't experience energy or that kind of spiritual flow in life force, we overuse our intellects to understand life. We overuse our intellect to understand ourselves. So how do we do that? We have to label everything. We label this, we label that, we have to give this an explanation and that an explanation. And in those labels, we end up analyzing something, breaking something up to try and put it back together again. And we completely miss the point that we're actually whole in the process. And so as we continue to overuse our intellects like that, then your mind, it never experiences certainty, stability. And sometimes you've just got to shelve that rational part of yourself and say, look, we're going to meet you later when the time is right. And step into the spiritual stream of the inner life force of the soul. And feel from there who you are. And in that feeling, understand what's happening. You don't need to name everything that's happening. You just need to understand what's happening. And then in that feeling of that life force, act what you have to do then, and keep things simple for yourself. What happens when there's pain, I think, because it's so uncomfortable to be with, is that we need to rationalize a situation or rationalize our surrounding to cope. It's a coping mechanism. It's like the fox reaction. Just try and outthink what you're experiencing right now. Because if you build a story around it, then, hey, okay, it's okay, I can live with it because I've got a story now. Fine. How many stories are you going to create? And eventually one day those stories will break down and you're going to have to face the reality of something. And the reality of it is what? Is I am a beautiful soul. I am a sweet soul. I am a peaceful soul. And at some point, there's something that's come in between my sense of who I am and me right now. And I've let something come in between that. I've let something cover it up. I've let something influence it. I've let something control it. So what is it that I've let in that's not me? That's not really who I am. And I suppose the more we meditate, what I've found over the years is that your sense of self becomes anchored in this very fluid life stream, because the soul isn't a static energy. It's an extremely fluid life force. Imagine a current of energy. You watch these kind of light bulbs and they've got filaments and then the wires. When they click on the filaments, there's a current of energy hits the filament, light's produced. But there's a current of energy passing through all these different wires. So the same way, the soul is a life force in its concentrated form, but then it's also an energy that sustains and supports functioning in the body. So it's a very dynamic energy. And the energy of this life force, if you stay in it long enough, can give your thought form a lot of power. So imagine a spark coming out of a light, a spark coming out. That's a thought. So what are your thoughts? They're essentially a component of this life force. They're not separate to your life force. And sometimes I think in life, because we've intellectualized everything so much, we've divorced the mind from the real sense of my mind is separate from me. Actually, Your mind is nothing. Your mind is only a function, an ability of the deeper life force that you are. And somehow you've forgotten who you are. And so you think you're your mind, and you get scared by your own mind. So I feel that, you know, a big part of courage is this really first sentence of this program I liked very much: the courage to be honest and be really truthful with myself in answering, getting to the bottom of this question: who am I? Not just at a rational intellectual level, but at a deeply felt level. Who am I? I have to answer this question for myself. If I don't answer it for myself, how do I access all the treasures behind this, in this life force? How do I bring them flooding into my awareness if I don't bring myself there? And I know in my own meditation practices in the early days, it was a process and it was a journey to feel myself beyond all these labels and to come back to what I call home inside. You know, this is a place inside that you just know. It's a place of knowing. It's a place of clean stability. It's a place of clean determination. And these are the energies that I think are the expression of courage, because together with clarity of who I am, like a clearness inside, a sense of conviction in what I do develops, because I know who I am and I understand who I am. And so together with that conviction, then I can become more determined in what I think and what I speak and what I do. And the wonderful thing about executing anything in our lives, and this is part 2, the courage to act, is that when something has an energy of clear determination behind it, it will happen. If you've ever started a task with a half doubt, guess what? It's very difficult. Never happens. You struggle and struggle. But when you've had moments in your life when you just know this is the right, then it's like that thread opens up a clear path in front of you. And so I would say that sometimes our thoughts are not determined enough. And behind determined is this energy of self-understanding, self-truth, and the cleanliness you feel of being honest with yourself and honest with your conscience. These are the basis of real courage, spiritual courage in our lives. Creating a powerful friendship with our conscience, so that we continually experience an atmosphere of cleanliness in our being. So I think what I'd like to do is stop here for now, because this whole first topic of the courage to be is this stepping away from the limited sense of courage, from what I have and what I own and what I've achieved, great, 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 which, when we've noticed in the pandemic, is absolutely redundant. Everything I have doesn't mean a thing, because when I'm with myself, who am I? And I'd like to invite you into a few minutes of a journey of meditation to step in through this doorway of who I am, so that we can step into a place of a stillness and quiet and something that's eternal beyond the limitedness of our day-to-day existence. So wherever you are, just sit comfortably, sit up straight, just move a little bit, your shoulders, arms and legs, so that you can just ease away the tension of having stayed in one position. And just for a few moments, I'd like you to take a few deep breaths in through your nose And just breathe out strongly through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you're breathing out through your mouth, just breathe away all the tension in your body. Keep breathing in and out. And just feel yourself come to a place. Feel the body come to a place of rest and calm. Let your breathing settle into a gentle rhythm. And I'm going to invite you to rest your eyes on the point of light you see in front of you. And just leave your eyes there like you would just leave them rested somewhere. And just start to become aware of yourself inside the costume of this body. Yes, beyond the skin, there's muscles and bones. And yet, what is the energy that makes this whole organism work so efficiently? The heart pumping, the stomach digesting. What is this energy that listens through these ears and speaks through this mouth? Just start to feel yourself as this subtle energy inside. It's giving life to this body. And now visualize all this energy concentrating and rising up from your legs, up through your chest, rising up from your hands, rising up and concentrating into a ball of energy behind your eyes. A star of light. A star of peace. And as everything comes together into this essence of a star,
Eyes. Para mabalik mo. Di na malamig.
feel yourself sitting on a throne behind this third eye. For a few moments, the body feels like a puppet. And you've concentrated your energies into this forehead, this place behind the eyes that we call the third eye. This is the seat of the soul. And just experience the sense of lightness that comes over your body. And say to yourself 3 times inside in your mind, very slowly, I am a being of peace. I am this star of peace. I am this subtle being of peace. And for a few moments, you step into a timeless space. I am an eternal being. I may have changed costumes many times. Start to feel a quiet, gentle sense of inner power. I, the soul, am quietly powerful and deeply peaceful. This is like coming home to me in my truest form, beyond all the limited labels and identities. And now stay in this awareness of being inside. As you open your eyes a little bit more, look out at the screen, and we continue our journey of exploring courage. The more we meditate regularly, the more simpler and quicker this journey becomes, until it's not a journey anymore. And I'm actually just in that space, operating from that space. And then my life fundamentally changes, drastically changes. And so the more courage I have to access and be here for longer periods, I will truly then be able to live my life from the inside out, and to find a sense of stability and find a sense of well-being and peace beyond the limited upheavals of my temporary, existence and identity. Things will come and go, but my peace and happiness always stay with me. Now, we come to this whole aspect of the courage to act. And very much, of course, the first barrier when we arrive in action for many people is fear. And often I hear these two words, well, courage is only needed to overcome fear. No, courage is rooted in honesty and truth. That's where courage is born. Fear is only a symptom. And have you ever noticed that when you're actually exhibiting qualities, you don't know you're being courageous or tolerant or patient or faithful. It's the person watching you that labels you that. right? At the time of it, you're just being honest, you're being truthful, you're being clear, you're acting with faith. And then it gets perceived from the outside as confidence and determined. And so then everybody tries to copy the external expression, but forgets the root and the quality of the energy behind the expression. So we're always trying to be determined like they are, or be confident like they are. And it's such a superficial thing to do. And so for me, very much what meditation does is it gets us back in touch with our authenticity, where we redefine our expression of quality our own way. And I'm not spending my life busy trying to look like somebody else or be like somebody else. And so when we take the subject up to fear, you know, we've given fear too much importance. I remember when many years ago, I had suffered from vertigo, very severe vertigo. And I remember as I would start walking, my whole body and system would go into a panic attack. And I was like quite concerned. I thought, my gosh, all my years of meditation, I'm having panic attacks now. And I remember going to see the ENT surgeon. And I said to him, what's going on? Of course, when I go and have vertigo on waking up, it's like that. And then I try and steady myself. But I my whole body's like going into this kind of quasi freeze mode. And he said, well, you know, your balance system between your ears, there's a balance system, it's affected. So when your balance is affected and what your body knows to be normal is not normal anymore, then it's going to compensate to protect you and freeze you. So it's not a big deal. Just walk through it. And I thought that was the best piece of advice he could have given me. Was just keep walking. The body will find its balance. And that's where I think the fear is. Fear is a byproduct of everything we've done in our past that's gone against our truth. Do you remember the first time you told a lie? Probably not. But if you remember it, you will know the fear that accompanied that time, the fear of being found out, the fear of having actually done something against your conscience. And then you had two choices. You had the choice to tell the truth and liberate your conscience, or you had the choice to tell another lie. And actually, that's not a choice. That's just an easy way out. And if you tell another lie, it's easy because you can, you know, make up a story. And if you choose that path, you don't reconcile with your conscience. You just take the easy path. You tell another lie. And then guess what? It gets harder and harder to tell the truth. Because then you've got two lies to say, well, I told this lie, and then I told this lie to cover up this lie. Then I told this lie to cover up this lie. And it becomes harder and harder to tell the truth. And eventually what starts to happen is you start believing your own lies. And as you start believing your own lies, you start living out your lies. And that's why you'll wake up one day in your life and you'll feel where you wanted to be and where you are now, two different places. Because from the beginning, you didn't stay on track with your conscience. So what's fear? Fear is that all that energy we've accumulated on the way by simply having done things, having not listened to our conscience and having done things. So it's just a symptom, like your whole body goes into a panic attack because you're trying to organize yourself, trying to bring yourself back. It's just a symptom. It's not a big deal. The main thing is keep walking. So keeping walking and being courageous means to continue and to activate the conversation with your conscience very powerfully in your decision making in life. Because, you know, many times I get asked the question, is there such a thing as the right decision? And I'm like, no, a decision is only an act. You go left, that's an act. You go right, that's an act. You go forward, that's an act. But what are you inside yourself when you're acting? And if you're not right inside yourself, if you're not making this decision from a place of your conscience, having consulted your conscience, right, then you won't be right in yourself when you're making the decision. And so you'll struggle. You know, the sat navs are beautiful. You have to type in your destination, and then it recalculates your route for you. Even if you take a wrong turn, it'll recalculate. So a decision is only an act. You can take as many decisions as you want in a day. If you go left and you find you're going the wrong way, turn right. If you do a right and you find you're going the wrong way, turn left again. It's okay. Take as many decisions as you want. But inside, be right. Consult your conscience inside. And then you'll find you're much more effective in your decision-making processes. And, it's so important that when you actually consult your conscious and you're more conscientious as you act, what that does is it creates a sense of safety and stability inside in your mind. You feel safe when your conscience is clean. You feel certain when your conscience is clean, when you're acting on the basis of conscience. You feel certain and you feel safe. I've noticed these two things. And the beautiful thing is that when you feel certain and safe, and that's the environment you create in your own awareness and mind, then guess what that does? It brings up all your abundance to the surface. It brings up all your hidden qualities and treasures to the surface because there's safety. There's a container of safety and certainty there for something to flourish. And I've created that container by being conscientious. So I allow my peace to work for me. I allow my truth to work for me. I allow my love to work for me. I allow my happiness to work for me. But when I've done something against my conscience and I keep hiding it, that's when guilt creates uncertainty in my mind. It creates not fear, but it creates a sense of unsafeties. I'm not safe. Why do I feel not safe? Because I've got probably something to hide. There's something I haven't revealed to myself about myself. So I find that the more honest we are, the more we create an environment of safety inside for all our goodness to flourish, for everything to come out in a true way. And when we're not honest with ourselves, it takes time. And we're bumping up against all these other things. So making friends with our conscience, creates an atmosphere of safety and certainty. And in that atmosphere of safety and certainty, I can act with grace, act with love, act with peace, act knowing I have all these resources inside me. I am abundant. I am fortunate. And as I am fortunate, guess what? When I act from an awareness of abundance, I draw abundance. When I act from a place of fear, it's a deficit mindset. And if I act from a deficit mindset or make a decision as a beggar from a deficit mindset, that's what I create in my life. And so many of us, I suppose, we're used to begging. Decisions are just hidden. Our decisions just cover up begging, expectations, demands, or, wanting something to happen so that I can feel happy and peaceful. But our decisions don't come from a place of I am. This is who I am, therefore I act. And then it's not courage. Your act is a clear stream. Your act is coming from a very clear, clean stream of who you are. And for the people watching outside, that looks like courage. It's not courage, it's truth. It's called being true to oneself. And it's such a beautiful thing to do, to be true, to create a life where I can be true to myself. I can be true in my relationships. I'm not saying be true to a person, no, because it's not about the person. It's about me in a relationship. See, there's two people, there's a relationship between them. There's an energy exchange there. How true am I in that energy exchange? It's got nothing to do with them. So I'm not being true to them because they're not me. I'm separate. But how true am I being to myself in that energy exchange? And how true am I being in that energy exchange? Or am I throwing in that energy exchange lots of judgments, expectations, lies, reactions. You know? And so somehow, you know, when we really have no spiritual grounding, we've completely lost ourselves to another person in a relationship. How can you be courageous if you're dependent? It's impossible. You've got to extract yourself out from that belief that you are that person. You know, it's like you've put so much energy into them that suddenly that's it. You can't see anything except them. And that's a very dangerous place to be, because you've just given your power away. And when you're powerless, how can you be courageous? The first act is to take back your power, which means, who am I? Who am I in it? Clean up my ship. Start to get honest with my conscience, with my actions, and begin an internal process of aligning to what is deeply true and real, and not what's artificial and showy and temporary. So I feel very deeply that creating this mindset of abundance, abundance starts to draw abundance into our life. And yes, there are moments when we can speak truthfully, and we can be honest, because that's who we are. But it may not be heard, it may not be accepted, and that's fine too. It shouldn't stop me from being who I am. You know, when I think of little Greta, who's on the climate, who's the climate activist, and I'm just looking at, she's just honest. That's all she is. You know, even though, you know, people might want her to say other things, she's just honest. And she hasn't stopped being honest. And I think somehow being honest and also being truthful are very important qualities in just appealing to people's conscience. At some point, something will happen. But, you know, at least I'm not being true because I want an outcome. I'm being true because it's who I am. And that's one thing I've always had to remind myself, is I can't control circumstances and people, but I can definitely influence them with who I am. And so how can I maximize my sense of self and create such a clean, become so clean as an instrument, become so clean and accumulate my spiritual power so that I can maximize my influence? And so for me, the whole journey is about 90% of my time is about cleaning up my ship inside, so that I can be used as an instrument of the divine, you know, of goodness, to pack a punch in the world. Because you can only be as effective as who you are. And if you yourself are in bondage and are dependent, guess what? That rubber band will only let you go so far, and until you snap back again. So it's so important. You know, I've spent so much time with Dadi Janki, the former head of the Brahma Kumaris, who passed away last year at 104. And she was unstoppable as an energy. I had a nickname for her. Every time she comes in, I call her Hurricane DJ. You know, she'd come in and she'd have this spiritual orbit of an energy around her that would just start drawing everybody's potential out. And they were like puppets to this, you know, and people would just feel so good in her energy. Amazing things would happen. People would say, oh my gosh, I didn't believe I could do this. And so many things could happen. I thought, wow, here is a soul so deeply truthful and so deeply connected to God that her very life is a force that draws out people's goodness. It's a force of change. Her life is a force of change. And it's been just so inspiring to watch her. And in many ways, she's been a powerful mirror, because, you know, I've had to deeply question my own sense of what I think is right, and move away from the right, wrong, justify level, you know, justification level. As I was training to be a lawyer, justice wasn't a very important part of my domain. And I realized that holding the energy of justice was actually a form of violence in the long term. And that justice sat in the polarized mindset of right and wrong and would never allow forgiveness. And if I really wanted reconciliation and something to come to a place of whole, then I had to step beyond the right wrong mindset that fed the justice mindset into a place of truth and peace, to allow a meeting of what was not truthful with compassion to bring it back to truth again. Because that very act of being compassion is an act of truth. That's the beautiful thing about it. It's okay to make a mistake. Just don't make the second mistake of thinking about your mistake and being guilty about it. Because the more that happens, the more mistake conscious you become, the further away you go from your truth. But you know, when you just start the process of dialoguing with your conscience, what happened? What did you feel when you were doing this? Why did you feel what you felt? And just revealing yourself to yourself. Oh, it's such a relief. It's such a relief. And it's okay. Everything is okay. And when you feel like that, guess what? Everything is okay and everything will be okay. So then the courage to act, you know, it's not a courage. It's not, I wouldn't call it courage. I would just say it's you stay in the stream and you understand what's happening and you just express from that place. And you just live your life quietly, beautifully, gracefully. So I want to stop there. And I hope that in what's been shared, there's some value. So I'd like to close with a little meditation again. So wherever you are, just sit up straight. And once again, just take a couple of deep breaths and relax. Let's come back to that awareness of who I am behind these eyes, bringing all the energy, the subtle energy in the body, up, 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 and concentrating it behind these eyes. I, the soul, am a being of light, giving life to this body. And I let myself come together. Just allow this energy to come together into an essence of light. This is who I am. And when I'm here, I'm in my power. And I am inside in my power. And I'm aware of the rest of the world outside. Through the windows of my eyes, I can see the busy streets outside, the cars, the people. But it's like the world is moving around me and I am inside in my inner space, my quiet space. And in this soft and sweet silence, I let myself be free, releasing myself of the doubts and the worries and the labels and the fears and the limited identity and the questions. And I let myself be quiet, at peace. Everything is okay here. And in this silence, I'm not alone. A divine energy, the parent of the soul, God the Supreme, has been my quiet companion. I wasn't quiet enough to know that God was there. But now I know, no matter what, I've always been taken care of. I am a child of God. And I rest in this identity of being a child. A light linked to that supreme light. And I am bathed in an ocean of peace and an ocean of love. And I let myself rest in this awareness of who I am and who I eternally belong to. Om Shanti.
So, Om Shanti, Sister Gopi. Maraming salamat. That's many thanks again. And I'm happy to announce that you have covered more than half of all the questions that came in earlier. We have about 4 more, but yes, only 4 more left, but everything else covered. And this 4 has to do with a little elaborate definition and courage and the pandemic, and how do I know if I have courage, and balancing. We will be more specific. So may we start asking the questions, Sister Gopi? Just a little more left. Okay, first one about definition. Is courage the same as strength? Once I am able to see who I am, which should I expect to come first, courage or strength? That's it.
Good question. Well, even when you think of it at a physical level, when someone's developed physical strength, they have courage to lift things and do things. So strength is a factor, personal strength, where they know the capacity of their body, for example. This is at a very physical level. So at a spiritual level, strength is derived from knowing myself and feeling myself. Because, feeling myself is the capacity. Knowing myself is the information.
Oh.
So at the level of, for example, even like a bodybuilder, he knows what he can become. Like he knows he can flex and have six-pack abs. But until he actually does the exercise and starts feeling the strength, he builds the capacity to lift heavier weights. And that's why it's not enough just to know yourself as a soul. You have to deeply feel it, because as you feel it, you expand your spiritual capacity, and that's where your strength lies. And when there's that sense of strength and accumulated power over a period of time, then guess what? You will automatically be patient and tolerant and courageous. All the qualities just start. It's like you work on autopilot. It's like a car that has petrol just runs by itself. You don't stop to think, well, what's the engine doing in relation to the steering wheel? There's no thinking. It just works. It's the same way when there's strength in the soul, action is automatic. And the courage to act is automatically there.
So they're bound to descend upon you at about the same time?
Sorry?
So courage and strength are bound to come at almost the same time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, our next question is there a single formula for employing or deploying courage that would apply everywhere on the planet, since situations in different world are not all the same? For example, at this time, people in the Philippines, Afghanistan, and the United States have to deal with different kinds and levels of fear. Okay. Is there a single formula?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I call it a formula, but I would encourage people not to think. Don't think.
Don't think.
Why I say that? Because our current thinking processes that we're used to are very rational processes or intellectual processes that are labeling and creating a story out of everything we see. That's what's happening. People are reacting to something, they're thinking, opinionating about it, creating a story about it. And all of that is creating a wall that doesn't allow you to actually think clearly, for your wisdom to work for you, for your wisdom to find solutions, for your wisdom to see objectively, for your own truth and wisdom to see a way through. So, for a period of time, I've been hearing people say, well, I'm reducing how much I watch the news, or listen, I'm just wanting to create space so my own wisdom can speak to me, rather than plug into so many outlets of information 24/7 a day. Oh, well, let's do this story about this story about this. Well, use your own conscience.
Mm.
And for that, you need to create an environment of a bit of space and silence. So don't think. Don't think about anything outside. Don't create another story. Don't opinionate. Just don't think. And then once you create that space inside, everything starts to work for you. Your conscience is the driver that actually will let you know the resources you have and where you need to go and what you need to do.
Mm. Okay. I think that would also answer this next question, but just in case you may want to add something, it's about courage in the face of the pandemic. The question is, COVID-19 makes us face on a day-to-day basis the fear of death. What is courage in the face of pain, scarcity, and death? Would the same answer apply? Don't think.
Yes. However, a deeper understanding is required, because what I understand about, especially if you're talking about it within the situation of the pandemic, I had COVID in April this year in India. And I had an inside out experience, and being in India, away from the UK, at a time when beds were running out in hospitals in India. Injections were running out in hospitals in India. And plus I had another person who I had to care for at the same time who contracted COVID and was in a much worse state than I was. And I realized that COVID, the experience of COVID, was the last experience at the end of the tunnel. The place that it started from was a moment of uncertainty and a moment of maybe I can't cope. It started from a self-doubt. And that I watched it weaken my system. And as it weakened my system, as I was continuing my day-to-day work, because I had to look after certain people, but because I had this added pressure inside, maybe I can't cope, I'm reaching the end of my threshold. I didn't stop to ask for help. I just continued with that thought and I continued doing what I did. And of course, bang, I created a door of weakness for a virus to enter. So what I've noticed, is that, within medicine and also science, they talk about frequencies of energy, every scale of quality, from hate, anger, is a frequency. And of course, those frequencies govern certain organs, which is why even in Chinese medicine, they talk about the liver, as a governing, anger, spleen, worry, different, your heart, excitement, for example. And they talk about staying balanced in your emotional state. Because if you don't, you create a frequency that opens up, is the same frequency as a virus. And guess what? Two things: marry, attach, and it sticks to you. So immunity at this time, and the courage to be immune, is to really build an unshakable sense of self-respect. Unshakable. And that's where then the fear of, the fear of death, the fear of other things passes, because it's minimal. Of course, the experience of myself as a soul gives me the comfort of my eternity. That's come through my meditation practice. But then as I'm in the sandstorm of a lot of different things happening around me, it's only the power of an unshakable self-respect that will keep you immune, because your whole immune system responds just like liver responds to anger, and it's disturbed by anger, spleen. Your immune system is connected to your sense of self-respect, your sense of self. And if you don't keep your sense of self strong, that feeling of yourself strong, then you will open a door to being invaded by something or someone. And that's what I saw in my own experience. So it is, yes, don't think, because you don't allow any other thought to disturb your sense of self.
And once again, you have answered two questions with that. So we have one question less, but two left, okay? This is a happy concern. It's knowing that I have courage. How do I make sure that courage would remain an inner strength and not develop into ego or something that keeps others away from me?
I think the question is, it's more about the ego than it's about courage. I think the question. I think the question.
Is that possible for courage to develop into something like that?
No, because it's a paradox then. It means you're not being courageous, you're just putting on a false show, but you're quite vulnerable underneath, and you're not willing to acknowledge that you're vulnerable underneath. I think a big part of our journey forward, and I'm going to come back to this, is being honest with ourselves. And sometimes being deeply honest with ourselves creates a sense of feeling delicate and vulnerable inside, and it's okay. And being honest with ourselves, knowing what I can do and what I can't do. And being honest with the self is knowing I can do this and this is where I need help, and to ask for that help. All of these processes that stem from honesty keep us humble. They keep us within balance. It's when we're not honest with ourselves that the ego steps in place and makes you believe you can become something you're not.
Thank you. Yes. And now the last, actually it's a set of questions, but in the same family. Actually, it's about putting a lid on courage. Well, let me just ask it. How do I find the balance between being courageous and being prudent or knowing my limitations? And all of these questions, the same direction. May I just read everything, Sister Gopi, so that you can just answer in one go? Shouldn't there be limits to being courageous? How can I be sure that my courage is beneficial for the self and others? And aside from forms of courage, are there levels of courage? When do I keep my courage and when do I accept things as they are? Same as limitations, right? Okay. And maybe this can just be connected in the end. On my journey of self-transformation, I have learned the courage to advocate for myself. Sometimes, however, I feel guilty about it. How do I overcome this? That's it. Am I right? They seem connected to me.
They are connected. And generally speaking, it's about timing. You know, we're so used to, I think, as human beings, kind of wanting to be ourselves everywhere. And you know, life is about balance. Everything, the ecosystem is constantly trying to find a state of balance. So can I be in a situation, and can my presence, can my contribution to that situation help to bring that current ecosystem I'm in into balance? So that means I'm measured in what I say and how I say it, how much I say, how much I do. I don't need to be a bull in a china shop all the time. I don't need to be loud about myself everywhere, because I may be the cause of bringing things into imbalance, if that makes sense, right? So this question about how far do I go? It's not about courage. Courage is the courage to be, and you're honest. And sometimes it's about timing. It's about when. That's the most important thing, because everything has a time for change. I can't push that moment. Like here I am, I might be honest now with somebody, but it's the wrong timing. You know, they're not ready to hear it. Yeah. They're not ready for it. And it's just, I've just picked the wrong time. So you know what? Let the time go. Let it find a quiet space. Maybe it's time when they feel more stable in their self-respect. And then maybe there's a conversation that can happen naturally and without me having to force something down their throat. So courage is not necessarily advocation, you know, it's about knowing when to be, what to be when.
Yeah.
And there is within that is a responsible use of your power, because you are within a broader ecosystem around you. You're not the only one. And the ego makes you think you're the only one. And that's the thing that makes you makes you go into imbalance, because you think you're the only one. And you're not sensitive to the broader ecosystem. You're one in a big part of things. And according to drama, whenever I find myself in situations, any situation, a meeting or this, I always feel like the universe and God has brought me in to help bring balance. So how do I need to be? What do I need to say to help something come to a place of balance? Everyone feels comfortable, so we move the ship at a steady pace, right? And everybody has a conscience. They have their own connection with God. They will figure it out if the ship stays balanced.
Yes.
Their potential will emerge, because within that sense of balance is safety. And where there's safety, everybody's potential emerges quite automatically.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sister Gopi. Before I invite you to lead us in a final meditation, I would like to take my leave from you, because, this is our last frame together. Maybe not our last time together, that's just tonight.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much for hosting it so beautifully and lovingly.
Thank you. I would have volunteered if they didn't ask me. So may I invite you to lead us into that last meditation now, Sister Gopi?
Sure. So wherever you are again, sit up straight. Just take a couple of deep breaths and bring the body to a place of rest. And once again, just put a pause to all thoughts and questions and worries and issues. And let yourself feel yourself inside. First, let yourself become this light. I am a star of light, a peaceful soul. Let this energy grow, this awareness grow inside you. Let it outgrow all other thoughts and labels and questions. And visualize this energy of light filling every cell in your body. Until you become a lighthouse of peace. Relax into your being. And as you trust this place, you stay in this place. You develop the ability to not only remain peaceful inside, but patient outside. Patient with lightness and grace. And as you create this quiet space inside, you keep your mind and heart open to the silent presence of God, to be your companion. When you are patient, you will always feel God beside you, with you. You will always feel that you are taken care of. And from that place of safety, certainty, and fortune of being a child of God, you have the courage to act in life very naturally and very gracefully. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.